We are the people of this land. Hear our voices and hear us loud. We stand tall and we stand proud. Through the waters and the streams, as they have given life to me, the life the water continues to grow, as it has done so many years ago. Hear our voices and hear us loud. Our people stand proud.
Alaska has one of the smallest populations of any state. In terms of raw numbers, there are less than 800,000 people, but its residents are spread out over a geographic area larger than Texas, California, and Montana combined. Its vast landscapes and ecosystems are at stake.
Alaska continues to grow, and with that continuation of growth, that means that there are more people after the resources that are available there.
I think as Alaska Native people, we're really facing multiple threats for our continued existence as Native people in Alaska.
We are repeating ourselves time and time again of our needs, of the funding shortfalls that we have. The questions that we need to ask is, when are people going to listen?
Alaska Native people make up 15.6% of Alaska's population and form the majority of the state's rural population, fishing and hunting on the same land and waters for countless generations. Alaska Native people have been at the forefront of protecting these lands and waters, often fighting private interests and state efforts to keep them from political influence.
The state of Alaska has been making it increasingly hard for Native Alaskans to protect their traditional ways of life.
Our sacred Indigenous ways of life have existed in Bristol Bay for thousands and thousands of years.
It's like who we are as a people.
As a tribal leader, one of the things that I see as a problem time and time again is that we're always having to explain our ways of life, how we live off the land, how we harvest, what it's like to be living in rural communities.
Elected leadership in Alaska is pretty ignorant about rural Alaska and Alaska Native needs and rights.
Throughout the history of Alaska, Alaska Natives have faced all kinds of widespread systemic discrimination, preventing them from the vote and their political power.
The state of Alaska has a long history of voter discrimination against Alaska Native communities, going back to when Alaska became a state.
The disenfranchisement of Alaska Natives has really been the rule for the majority of the 175-year history of Alaska in the United States.
In 1924, Alaska Natives were made U.S. citizens. The very next year, Alaska adopted literacy tests to keep Alaska Native people from voting.
When Alaska's Constitution was adopted, as a prerequisite for voting included the ability to write or read English. So we saw literacy tests essentially in the Constitution of Alaska.
Supporters of the literacy test at the time ran a newspaper advertisement which stated that the literacy test was, quote, an opportunity to keep the Indian in his place. And this is really untenable in a state where the decisions that elected officials make have a profound impact on subsistence practices and the Alaska Native communities that those practices sustain.
For decades, NARF has fought to enforce the rights of Alaska Native voters, alleging violations of the Voting Rights Act and the 14th and 15th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution for Alaska's failure to provide language translations of voter materials.
It's important that it's written in their language so that they know exactly what they're voting for.
It wasn't until several cases were brought against the state that we saw any language assistance being provided. And it took multiple cases to see any meaningful language assistance, and it's still an ongoing fight.
In rural communities, broadband access is patchy, and mail service is slow and difficult to access. Yet the burden too often falls on rural voters, who must rely on the postal system.
There are real challenges with being prohibited to once a week with mail. When the materials come in and the election office calls and says, can you give us an inventory? And I say, no, I can't. And they don't seem to understand, well, can you go get it? No.
During the 2024 elections, the Native American Rights Fund received reports that in several Alaska Native communities, polling places were not open or open late, and Alaska Natives trying to vote could not cast their ballot.
There are places in the state where votes, even when they're cast on Election Day or before Election Day, don't reach the election offices and aren't counted.
State legislators could fix these problems, but they refuse to do so out of the fear of the power of the Alaska Native vote, which they state explicitly In 2024, then Alaska House Speaker comments suggesting that the election bill rejected last session was blocked because it would have favored then Congresswoman Mary Peltola, the first Alaskan Native elected to the United States Congress by increasing access to voting in rural Alaska.
And so Alaska Natives overcome tremendous barriers in order to cast their ballots and flex their political power.
Legislatures know that Native Alaskans hold tremendous power to swing elections and elect candidates responsive to Alaska Native values.
Having somebody who is Native American and/or Alaska Native in that position, they already understand the importance of having a Native person in that role.
If we actually came together, we would be the deciding factor in every single Alaskan election.
The Native American Rights Fund has been fighting to protect natural resources and subsistence living alongside Alaska Natives for over 50 years.
NARF's work to enforce the voting rights of Alaska Native communities is really vital, not only in ensuring that tribal communities are able to build their political power that we often see denied by the state, but also in upholding other rights and ensuring that subsistence ways of living continue on for future generations.
Subsistence, to me, these days just means surviving, filling our freezers, being able to go out and do those traditional things that our ancestors have done.
Laws and rules are hurting, especially with subsistence, what we try to collect. My late father used to say, don't let those stop you from what you've learned from elders.
The elders would always say, respect the land and the land will take care of you.
Since citizenship was imposed, the Alaska Native people have courageously fought for their rights, overcoming decades of political exclusion to gain influence in Alaskan governance. Despite ongoing efforts to strip away the Alaska Native people of their power, land, and ways of life, they continue to stand firm and fight on.
Alaska Natives are fighting some of the biggest fights for Indigenous rights across the country. They're fighting to defend the salmon, they're fighting to defend subsistence, and these fights are really existential for Alaska Native people whose life ways really depend on Alaska's land and water and wildlife.
Alaska Natives overcome tremendous barriers in order to have their votes counted. But when they do, Alaska Natives can absolutely turn the outcome of elections.
It's extremely important that Native people be heard in elections because it was not that long ago that they did not have a voice.
It's important that our communities have good voting numbers so they could protect their own ways of life.
We are the majority in our lands. However, we are the minority when it comes to what happens in our lands. And that's why it's important for us to vote.
Voting helps us get people to represent us.
It's really encouraging to see Alaska Native people coming together, recognizing our power, and pushing back in ways that I don't think we've seen to date.
Our people will always be here, and we will always fight to protect our land.